I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the UP fair, man. I've breathed that freezing air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Hi, this is Jim Islip with MSU Extension, and this is What's Up at Uprec on June 5th, 2020. We'll start off with a few comments from Uprec Director, Dr. James T. Decker.
Hi everyone. Today I'm finishing up weighing seed for our PRI dry bean trial. And I've got the last border packet here. This dry bean trial includes 4 different varieties. And I'm weighing up the border, which is a black bean called B18504, or it was actually just named Adams out of the MSU breeding program with Dr. Kelly. So we're using this in the trial as well as for our border seed because they had a lot of it. So I'm looking for 60 grams of seed, and I'd already tared the scale here. A little bit over. We'll put that in the packet, and then we've got a little bit of inoculant, rhizobia, in there with the beans, since this is going on a site that hasn't had beans in a little while. And I'll staple it shut. And then these are perforated so we can tear them off. We're on the planter, and over here I've got the trial laid out in these boxes based on the map that you see here. So I've got to insert a few more border packets in there.
Uprec staff member Andy Barman will tell us a little about the plot planter.
This is our 3-point hitch winter stagger plot planter. We plant a variety of crops with it: dry beans, soybeans, hemp. We've also planted, what else have we? Rye. We've planted a bunch of different crops with it. It's a 7-row planter. Right now we're set up for dry beans. We got every other row picked up, so we're on 14-inch rows. It's ground driven, so when that tire's spinning, there's a kind of like a disc in here that's filling each one of these seed tubes, which then falls down into the furrow of the row. So we got press wheels on the back that closes the row, and yeah, it's a pretty simple planter, which is good.
Christian Kapp, a research technician here at Uprec, is laying out the plots. They're carefully measured so that once the tractor and planter is in operation, the person riding on the back of the planter will know when to trip that seed packet and get the seed into the ground.
So we're out today planting our PRI dry bean drought resilience trial. PRI stands for the Plant Resiliency Institute. It's a new center on campus at MSU focused on climate change resilience in the plant industries. So they funded this study where we're looking at the ability of different dry bean cultivars to withstand drought conditions. And it's particularly important to understand drought resilience in an organic production system because of the way that nitrogen fixation in organic dry beans is dependent on adequate soil moisture. We're limited in the amount of supplemental nitrogen fertility that we can provide to dry beans in an organic system, and unfortunately they're not real great nitrogen fixers. So we're planting these plots today with 4 different dry bean varieties, including a black, which is B18504, or recently named Adams. We've got a pink bean called Rosetta, a small red called Cayenne, and a non-nodulating experimental variety, or a mutant dry bean called R99 that does not nodulate and thus does not fix nitrogen. So we can actually compare nitrogen fixation between the R99, which will be 0, and the other varieties based on cultivar and drought stress. So you might be wondering, if this is a drought trial, how are we going to know that it's drouthy up here? Well, once these beans come up, we're going to install structures called rainout shelters. They're PVC frame with clear poly roofing, 10 by 10 foot, and they'll split each of these variety plots. So we'll have the variety open to the ambient conditions and the variety under drought conditions. This year that'll be a 100% rainout shelter, and we will irrigate accordingly under the shelters and in the open plots to maintain the appropriate difference in soil moisture. The other thing that I want to mention is the climate connection, if you will, on this particular project is the trends that are predicted by climate models for the Upper Peninsula. And that is more precipitation overall, but concentrated in large events, mostly in the spring and the fall. So what we're expected to see is kind of wet spring, wet fall, and potentially more drought in between, which is again the motivation for this project, looking at the ability of the dry bean crop in an organic system to stand up to drought.
And that's what's up at UpRec on June 5th, 2020. Hope to see you again next time. I'm in the Fayette, Fairport, Faithhorn, Iron Mountain, Flat Rock, Freda, Ishpeming, Tri-Mountain, Kearney, Pelkey, Champion, Meriwether, Grand Marais, Perkins, Pine Stump, Ford River, Green Garden, Foster City, Massey.